Yes, Ruchi. So your question is about the difference between ethics and morality. So you will see that in the links that is shared that uh, ethics is deriving the word from the Greek, and it is more about character. Character and morals is deriving from Latin, and it is more about customs. So it is more general. Ethics more individual or particular, and morals are more general. You can say ethics deal with right and wrong conduct. Morals deal with the principles governing the same, more general principles that govern what is right and what is wrong. That is morals, and ethics is a particular behavioral pattern where we can say this is right or wrong there. So ethically, in this example, if you want, and I want some examples from you also, if you can understand this and give the examples. So general principle says that speak truth. Speak truth. Truth should be valued. That is general principle about this truth. And it obviously means that don't lie, don't say a lie. That is a moral principle. Now, ethical is like when can I do this in my behavior? If time comes where telling a lie is more beneficial to the overall good of the people involved in that particular event, then for me, is it telling truth necessary or is it telling a lie necessary? For example, if I am in a situation and then I have to give a bad news to the family members that somebody in the family has passed away. And the old parents are suffering from other illness, and if they will suddenly come to know, they also may collapse. Wife or daughter or anybody in the family member may also get adversely affected if that news is told very bluntly to them. So you will take some time. You will say that what happened. You will say he is hospitalized. Nothing to worry. Everything will be okay. Even though you know that the person is dead, you will say that he is hospitalized. Everything will be okay. Is that you will take some time, and then waiting for the right moment you will tell. So you are telling a lie. So ethics are this. It is an individual behavior that when people are supposed to work on the larger principle of morality, the larger principle of morality there. Why we have ethical dilemmas or moral dilemmas, and then we go for the words like amoral or immoral, similar, because there is always a kind of a situation in life where things are not that black and white. Good is good, bad is bad. Had it been so, life would have been much easier. But it is not always so. And that's why the moral principles should be governing the larger context of the thing, but individual ethical behavior it is also very important, that when and how people do that. Now, because you have that space that, well, moral principle says this, but ethical behavior also is something different, people tend to misuse the moral principles also. They tend to misuse the larger moral principles also. Various case studies are given to understand these things. Like, for example, you are in a situation where you are an insurance agent. You are an insurance agent, and your friend is just detected with cancer, and he is in the last stage, and after 3 or 6 months he may die. Now you want to support the family. So being an insurance agent, you say that you will hide the health credentials of the person, and you will get a very large insurance policy for that person, a large insurance policy, so that after 6 months when the person dies, the family member can get the support there. Well, it seems like ethically you are trying to help the person. Your individual behavior at that moment ethically is to help the people. the moral principle that is guiding the situation, that may tell you that, well, but you are lying with the company which is giving you a job, the company which relies on your document and your signature, you are lying with the company. So what is a fair way in between this? What is a fair way? Well, on one side, I want to help a friend and his family. On the other side, I may be becoming immoral. I may try to say that, well, I am doing for the good purpose, so it is fair. Well, people say that no, it is still not fair. In this situation, in this particular situation, it is still not amoral, it is immoral. It is still immoral because to help other people is good. To help is good. But you have to help people from your pocket. You can't steal money and help the other person. If you say that I will steal so that I can help, then again you are immoral in your behavior. This also. So that is the concern where ethics and morality becomes problematic at times, and becomes very difficult for the people to take sides or to understand the overall kind of things also are there. We love to tell stories of Robin Hood, the stories of Robin Hood, and these are bandits, that is Baharvatiyas. The stories of Baharvatiyas are, again, they are wrongdoers. Their ethical behaviors are wrong, but they are guided by a different kind of moral principle. And that moral principle, this moral principle is a different kind of justice. They are guided by a different kind of justice system where they try to do good to the people, and so they are fighting with one atrocious king or somebody who is a bad ruler. Bahar Raina what rakho, Baharvatiya tho, bandit tho, with the moral principle they try to do the thing. Robin Hood steals money from the rich people, gives to the poor people, and then we do the thing. Philosophically speaking, all these things are not fair enough. Philosophically, when you speak on that, well, this entire things are not fair enough. This is not the right way. That's why in many of those things we find that both these things, ends plus means, both are important. Your ends is to help people. That is your uddeshya. Your uddeshya, your aim, your objective is to help. But your means are problematic. Your means are problematic. Sadhan, madhyam. સાધન પણ શુદ્ધ હોવું જરૂરી છે. સાધન પણ શુદ્ધ, ખાલી ફક્ત ઇન્ટેન્શન જ સારો હોય તેનાથી in real sense ethics or morality એ પામી શકાતું નથી. સાધન શુદ્ધિ ન હોય તો, એટલે સાધન શુદ્ધિ બહુ મહત્વની છે. For in many of the discourses, rather than the ends or intentions, your path is very important. Your path, your way of doing is more important than whether you are reaching the destination or not. So the other argument can be like, intention was fair enough, my intention was not wrong. Well, you can give that as an excuse. You can say that, well, I regret, I'm sorry, my intention was not bad. Fair enough, you can be pardoned for that, but it doesn't mean that that will become a moral behavior or ethical instance of that. It will not become also there. So ethics are particular kind of a behavior, and moral is overall guiding principles. And in between those things, there are lots of gray shades. In between, there are lots of gray shades there. So the same moral principle may have a different kind of ethical behavior also. Same moral principle may have a different ethical behavior. Completely opposite ethical behavior may come from the single moral principle also there. And any further question or addition if you want to give?
Sir, if of very small child, that whenever some kind of mischiefs are done by child, then parents used to ask that, tell me the truth, I will not tell you anything or I will not beat you. But when child tells the truth, many a time after listening to the child, parents beat them. So it is like that child is given punishment not for speaking speaking the lies, but for
Yes, yeah.
as he or she spoke the truth, he was beaten. Otherwise, if he wanted, he can cover his mischief also, and
Hmm.
he can escape from that punishment.
Punishment, yeah. So like,
So
but so
in
there,
that case,
ah, yes, yeah. Hmm. So since there is a child's behavior, you can say there is even there is parents
yes,
promise, there is a child's behavior, there is a promise, and then there is an event that is happening in between this. So when parents are promising, they are just promising to extract the truth. Their end was to extract the truth. Their means was
yes,
wrong because they said that we will not do that. So parents are also doing something wrong, and child also is doing something wrong. So the child will say that, well, if my parents are also doing wrong, then my wrong is right. No, it will not be right. It will still be wrong. So if a person A is doing wrong, person B cannot say that my wrong is now right, because either it should be right or wrong. That is what we believe. Either there should be, but it can be both wrongs also. So if parents' promise is wrong, doesn't mean that child telling that becomes right, because what he tells, what he tells uh, is fine, but his behavior is still problematic. So he's punished for the behavior, something that he has done. For that, he's punished. For what he told the truth, if that was like, people weigh the things, like what you do, good and what bad you do, and the people who are there to make a judgment on those things, they decide whether your good is more or bad is more. So your telling truth is not much as important as your behavior that was there. And so you are beaten for your behavior. You are beaten for your behavior. Later on, the same parents will appreciate કે મારની પણ બીક ન લાગે, સાચું બોલે છે. You will get your fruit. Maybe after when some guests are there, કોઈ મહેમાન આવ્યા હોય, ત્યારે તમને કે ભલે એને તમે મારો તો ખોટું ન બોલે, ત્યારે તમને એમ થાય કે I got the fruit. 2-4 વર્ષે પણ મળે, but you can get it. So દરેક વસ્તુની અલગ અલગ રીતે એનું મૂલ્યાંકન થાય. વર્તનનો માર પડે, પણ વર્તન કર્યા પછી સાચું બોલ્યા તો એમનું અલગ પ્રકારનો fruit. We never know how the same people can appreciate also there. But if people are doing wrong, so many people are doing wrong, doesn't mean that it becomes true in that sense. It will still remain wrong, even if 1,000 people say the same kinds of thing. That is the overall guiding principle, and it is always challenged a lot in different propositions, that how you will see those things. And as we say here, પેરેન્ટ્સ ક્યારે વખાણ કરશે સાચું બોલવા માટેના, એ આપણને તો ખબર જ નથી. 1 વર્ષ થાય, 2 વર્ષ થાય, કદાચ આપણે આપણા મૃત્યુ પછી આપણા વખાણ કરેલો. તો આપણને તો એમ જ છે કે મારા સત્કર્મોની કોઈએ નોંધ જ ન લીધી, મારા સારા કર્મોની તો કોઈએ નોંધ જ ન લીધી, એ થાય. અને એવું આપણે જોતા હોય તો આપણે પછી એ રીતે વર્તન ડેવલપ થાય કે શું કામ સારું થવું, વાય શુડ આઈ બી ગુડ, આમાં કોઈ નોંધ તો લેતું જ નથી. જો પેલા ખોટા છે તો કેટલા આગળ નીકળી ગયા છે, તો અમે પણ ખોટા થઈ જઈએ. That keeps on inspiring us more in that way. So overall strong principles. That's why spirituality, the stamina of spirituality is very important. That even thousands of people are doing something, they are achieving great success and everything. Still you can say that, well, wrong is wrong, right is right. Even if I don't get anything, well, I will be satisfied with what I do, or what I continue doing that. So that's why we have this another dictum that says that virtue is its own reward. Virtue is its own reward. So if I say I am virtuous, so I should get other thing. No, you are virtuous itself is the reward. That is self. કે અત્યારના સમયમાં જ્યારે એટલા બધા લોકો ખરાબ છે, એમાં તમે સારા છો, રહી ગયા છો, એ જ તમારો રિવોર્ડ છે. બીજું આમાં મુગટ ન કરવાનો હોય કે મને મિસ ઇન્ડિયાનો તાજ પહેરાવી દો, કે મને મિસ્ટર વર્લ્ડ નો તાજ પહેરાવી દો. ના, એ તમે સારા છો એ જ તાજ છે અહીંયા. જ્યારે બધું જ સળગી રહ્યું હોય એમાં તમે રહી ગયા છો સારા, that itself is the reward. So that is how people say virtue is its own reward. એના માટે બીજા રિવોર્ડ ના હોય virtue માટે. એના માટે પછી તો હેરાન પરેશાન થવાનું હોય, because you are not a part of Gadaria Prawa. You are not a part. So that is more of those kinds of a thing. So that is what you can put into child parent kind of dynamics also there. Okay, so that point is clear. Yes, yes, Rohit.
Sir, my question was that is the universal human laws are constructed through the continuous tellings and retellings of mythological stories? We have also discussed that stories are narrated by each and every other person is very different ways, in bits and pieces, not in total in its entire sense. But can we say that universal human laws are constructed through tellings of myths?
Yes, yeah, yes. You can say that retellings of the same myth or the same stories told again and again, it helps in constructing what we call as human laws, which slowly and steadily become universal. Universal for a community, universal for a region, universal for a nation, or universal for all human beings. All human beings. So anywhere in different capacities, it becomes. But when we tell those stories again and again, they are supporting some kinds of norms, cultures, behavioral patterns, and that is what we call human laws, and that is universal for us. Until they are not challenged, until they are not questioned, they remain universal. But as we say that anything that we call even as universal, anything that we call universal is also questionable. Anything that we call universal, because that also has its own locus, you can say. It has its own space. It has its own time also. The example I can give is like when we say that the sun revolves around the earth. The sun revolves around the earth. So that now this universal truth is located at a particular thing, in a particular space, at a particular time. In that way, you see that. So you are at one point, you are located here, and from here you think that, well, sun is coming, going to the top, and then going down. Next day again he emerges here, and it goes up, and then it goes. This is from here I am seeing. This is seeing from here. This is the universal truth of this location. This is on earth. We are. And then we know that this is not the fact. Actually, there is a sun, and then there is earth which is revolving around the sun. It is the earth that is revolving. That is the truth. But this, my universal, is located in a particular position from where it is universal. So the same thing is about all human laws. All human laws operate in a similar way. Which culture is telling stories? Which community is telling the stories? And then the meanings are there for all those kinds of things. Some are wider for everybody, all human beings also. And when that comes, it becomes a part of what we call world literature. World literature, and for a time being, we can say that this is the universal characteristics of the literature. The literature, which is world literature, it means it has something that is universal truth, and so we call it. But then we realize that it's not the very concept of universal is problematic when it comes even to literature. Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Kavisha was asking the question.
Sir, I was asking regarding the fifth universal human law.
Okay. What is that?
So I am unable to find a perfect example from the work Westland, like how to relate this universal law with and apply it to this Westland and draw out some particular characteristics from that or examples or illustrations to support this law.
Which one is it? Fifth one is, what is that?
Fear in the handful of dust.
Okay, this one. I'm sharing the screen here.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah. So, what do you understand by this? Any idea this what you understand by this universal human law? Anybody else also can say something if you get an idea from this.
Sir, I think the last 2 points are not mentioned in our slides, so I was unable to find it.
Okay.
But here you have given an example.
Acha, okay. So is it clear then? Is it the eternal present of the human condition? Fear in the handful of dust. An image handful of dust in the present is decaying, and second one, the present moment gives a reminder of something slipping out of hand. Our consciousness reminds us that we are nothing but a mere handful of dust. For dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. So, what idea we get here is that we are constantly dying. We are like in a hand. If we have a sand in our hand, and sand is slipping away from our hand, so that feeling we constantly live. Now, see, this feeling is not experienced or lived by the people of younger generation. When we are in our youthfulness, then this feeling is far away from us. But as we move towards old age, this feeling becomes more pertinent. Because when you have just lifted the sand in your hand, it is still full of sand. So the sand that is slipping out is not very important. It is not important because still you have lots of sand in your hand. But once the sand in the hand within the fist decreases and the slipping out increases, then you care a lot, and then you try to hold it much tighter and tighter. But when you hold it much tighter, then more sand slips away. So that is, when we are youthful, we do not care for time, careless for time. The old people, they are very careful about time. That's why, that is one of the reasons that old people cannot even sleep also. They think that in sleeping, I am wasting my time. I should be awakened, I should be doing something. So that anxiety of somnambulism, sleeplessness, a kind of a disease that develops in old age by and large, because they fear now the time is slipping away from our hand, and there's there. This poem says that whether this or whatever you believe, you are nothing but handful of dust. It is not that the dust is in your hand. You yourself are nothing but handful of dust. So it gives a kind of a image to us that as such we are nothing. I am nothing into this large universe. My existence is almost nothing. That feeling, it gives the eternal presence of human condition. My predicament is that I am nothing in this large universe. If the earth also is just a speck of dust, then what are we into this? That idea it tries to give in this, and this idea is fear in the handful of dust that comes here. And this idea you may find in many literatures, many theology also, philosophy also, spirituality also. They also tend to give this idea. This exactly is what is coming from this Death by Water also. Remember the Phlebas? He was young and as handful as you are, and then just a few waves, and his bones were lost at the bottom of the sea. His bones were lost at the bottom of the sea. So you become nothing within no time. You become nothing. That idea is a kind of a human law that we have developed to tell ourselves. Yeah. Okay.
Sir, I have a question regarding this fifth one. Like, is it trying to say that our life is full of uncertainties? Like anything can happen to us?
The same one, fifth one you are talking about?
Yes, sir, fifth one.
Yes, yeah. Uncertainty, obviously, but yeah, but that also is there. But this is like, even if you are certain about things, when you are then sure about several things, then also you are nothing in this large universe. You are nothing but a mere. So it's more of this, that don't have ego. That is what exactly it tries to say. So egoless existence. That is what it tries to say. Because things are completely uncertain, and you don't know what will happen after few moments, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. That is our knowledge. That is our knowledge, that we don't know what may happen at next moment also. Yes. Then.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, does this interpretation have a scope of hope or getting things back to normal? Or is it dwelling in uncertainties and this handful, like mere getting decayed only?
Either way you can take it. Both the interpretations are possible. That if you want to say that it is a hopeless kind of an existence that I am living, then in this condition, being a handful of dust, it is a hopeless kind of thing. So that is also possible. The another one also, that with this also, well, I know this is the fact. Still, I can have my own life within those things also, which becomes more humbling to people. Which becomes more humbling. So humbleness, ignominy, those virtues develop when people believe that, I'm nothing. If I live, it is fine. If I die also, it doesn't make any difference to the sun that rises or the sun that sets or the birds that chirp, the trees, the grasses. They're not at all affected whether I live or die. They will still have their own existence. They will still have their own existence. So if I believe that, well, this Akaz poem, that Sakatano Bharajam Swan Tane, હું કરું એ જગનાંતા સકટનો ભારજમ સ્વાન તાણે સકટ ગાડુ બળદ ગાડુ bullock cart, and below bullock cart a dog is going. A dog is walking, and the dog thinks that, well, I am carrying this sakat. I am carrying the entire cart. If I will move out, then the cart will fill. You are just handful of dust. Even if you are there, it is fine. If you are not there, then also it is fine. That feeling. It can also be taken as a hopeless feeling. It can be taken as a hopeless feeling also. So that's why this duality of things are always there. Duality of things. Any kind of spirituality, any kind of philosophy, existentialism also, we will come to this point again about this duality. That if somebody says that, well, nothing is in your hand, why do you do anything then? So that is hopelessness. Well, I say that, well, nothing is in my hand, yet I will do whatever I can. And if nothing turns out, fine, nothing was in my hand. It doesn't make any difference whether it doesn't lead to any kind of frustration in that. So it helps people from being frustrated or going to depression if they have this on a positive side. Some people become natara and nakama because of this. કઈ આપણા હાથમાં ન હોય, કશું થતું હોય તો શું કામ કઈ કરવું જ જોઈએ? એમને નવરા બેઠા જ રહે, કઈ કરે જ નહીં. અને એ પણ આ જ ફિલોસોફીનો આધાર લે, એ જ સ્પિરિચ્યુઆલિટીનો આધાર રહે, એ જ એક્ઝિસ્ટેન્શિયલિઝમની ફિલોસોફી કે આધ્યાત્મિકતાનો આધાર લઈને કાંઈ જ ન કરે. God serves even to those who only wait and watch. God serves even to those who only wait and watch. ભગવાન તો એના ઉપર પણ કૃપા કરે છે જે ખાલી રાહ જુએ છે. તો આપણે ખાલી રાહ જોઈએ તો શું વાંધો, ખાલી એ જ કરીએ, બીજા પેલા ભલે દોડતા હોય આપણે રાહ જોઈએ. એટલે વ્લાદિમીર અને એસ્ટ્રેગોન વેઇટિંગ ફોર ગોડ, આપણે રાહ જોઈએ, વેઇટિંગ ફોર ગોડ. God serves also to those who only wait and watch. એ ક્યાં કહે છે કે કામ કરો તો જ હું આશીર્વાદ આપું? તો કે બસ મારી રાહ જુઓ તો પણ મારી કૃપા તમારા પર બની રહેगी, કૃપા બની રહેगी. નિર્મલ બાબા की तरह. તો એ તો એમ કે કૃપા, wait and watch. So people become nakama, nathara. They don't do anything. So either way, everything can be used. The duality of those things are significant. So even this you can interpret in either way. Both the ways you can do the interpretation of this. Okay, then.
So,
Yes.
so I am having a question. May I ask?
Yes, yeah.
Actually, sir, in this same presentation, in slide number 3, under functionalism and second para, there it is written that what they say, functionalist reading of meat. Functionalist reading of meat might extract universal laws. So how it can need to be happen? Can you please explain? Means how it can be, means if we are applying this thing practically, then how it can be done?
This is what we are doing. That you got an idea, a human law about this point. This we are talking that handful of dust. That you get a law that constantly we are dying. Constantly we are reducing into nothingness. That is the human law that we got from reading of the Westland, wherein these lines, when we read that you are nothing but handful of dust, the shadow before you, the shadow behind. That when I read, I get this idea. This idea tells that, well, each and every breath that I take, I am killing myself. I am reducing myself.
As we are getting ideas, we are extracting those universal human laws. You mean to say this?
Yes. So we are generalizing something. We are generalizing that are the laws, and these laws are repeatedly found in variety of literatures. We call it scriptures, we call it spirituality, we call it philosophy, we call it literature and stories. In many ways, you will find these kinds of laws which are governing our lives.
Acha. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Who else?
And sir, this slide number 5, it is not in our syllabus, means in syllabus site.
This is Zenia.
There is only one point.
Okay. I will upload this new one which you are seeing here.
Please, sir. Thank you.
I will exchange, or I will share the link of this so you can download this one. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Who else? Any problem in any understanding of any of the human laws? Or the one which you found most difficult to understand? Any one which is you find it difficult? Let me share the screen and let us have a very quick overview of all that. We have a few minutes left, and then we will, if possible, we'll continue next class also. Here, let us very quick overview. Nostalgia is a powerful feeling. You find it there. Force in the universe. Decayed condition of the civilization. Past and future clash with each against as yet unformed and just beginning present. The oppressed with a sense of not being free, consequently withdraws from the world of experience to the world of contemplation. We have seen this eternal present condition of human beings, fatal love and inevitable death. Temporal disorientation confounds the ideas that there is a material progress through history and reinforces the emptiness of experience that is at the heart of the poem. So the progression and regression that we have seen that comes here. The brute within the human is the obstacle to both death and resurrection, return to life. Brute within the human is there. Voyeurism and the repression of the desire to look. Our lives are depleted and we are on the verge of shipwreck. But we are not really shipwrecked. That's a very curious one. I hope you might have got the idea. The perverse fertility
Yes.
out of which nothing grows but rot. Okay? That itself is the agency for bringing forth the recognition of the sacredness of life. So death in life and life in death, Clarence Brooks also said. And you can add one more point here is that the poem begins with those lines. Sibyl, there is a character called Sibyl in the beginning. Satyricons references there. Before the burial of the dead, even before the burial of the dead, there are a few lines where those lines mean that a character named Sibyl is in the jar. Jar means prison, in the prison, and there are children playing, and they are asking, "What do you want, Sibyl?" And the Sibyl says, "I want death. I want death." So the people who think or crave for immortality, because our literature is full of stories about immortality. All literatures throughout the world, they have told wonderful stories about people who wanted to be immortal. And so they please God and they get Vardhan from God that I will be immortal. And ultimately what comes down is that death is a beautiful thing. It says that death is beautiful. There is death, so there is enjoyment in life. If there is no death, we can't enjoy the life. We know that we are not going to stay here forever. That's why we try to get the maximum from the life. If we think that, well, I am here for thousands and thousands of years, then we won't be able to enjoy each and every moment. So that is beauty. That is what it tries to say, death in life, life in death. Death of God idea is there. Cause of the barrenness of the wasteland. Okay. Knowledge of what is needed is not the same as attaining what is necessary. Purgation of sin. Okay, so these were some of the things. Now, well, today we are running out of time. So, but in case you have any of these things for tomorrow, then tomorrow also you can ask the question pertaining to this. One more slide, so I will share with you, or the link that you will get from this, and that will be about the next question, that is autobiographical